What's good with it? It's your boy 310. We finna get into these stories, man, right here. This is a show called For My Man. And basically, you know what I'm saying? It's a woman and a man. They did a lot of crazy things in this show. I just want you guys to see it, comment on it, like the video, and let me know what you think. All right, so let's get straight into the show.
And later, Jerry Woods' husband tangles all those around him in his web of absolute loyalty.
He told them what to do, and if not, there would be consequences.
And she'll soon learn that her family's bonds are held together by blood.
He pulled out his own gun and shot him in the head, killed him.
Now, what was he thinking? Was he thinking that he was going to pull out that strap, shoot somebody with a car driving past him, and nobody wasn't going to see nothing? No ring cameras, ATD cameras, none of that. Wasn't nobody going to see him but himself. Let's get to this story, man.
It was son against father and wife against husband.
There are hundreds of thousands of women in prison at any given time in the U.S. These are the true stories of women who committed heinous crimes in the name of love.
Look at this, man.
For my man. To the
For
east,
my man.
Jerry Woods will resort to bloodshed to avenge her guy. 33-year-old Gary, Indiana transplant Jerry Woods has settled into her role as matriarch of her large family, alongside her husband, David Johnson IV, who they lovingly call Pops.
Jerry already had 4 children, and Pops had 3 children of his own. So she became a stepmother to his 3.
Why did the wife leave
and
him
then
with all
together
the
they
kids?
had 3 more,
That's
for a
what you
total
gotta
of
ask
10.
yourself.
It's a beautiful thing when a group can come together as a clan. No step-parents, no step-siblings, everyone's just family.
Nothing is more important to them than their loved ones. But there is a catch to being in 37-year-old Pops' tribe.
He demanded loyalty from the people around him. He talked a lot about how important it was, the family. The family was number one. And all, we're supposed to protect each other.
Loyal to
Pops
himself.
did expect the kids to show respect and to do what he told them to do, and if not, there would be consequences.
Any nigga that put his hands on your kids like this and do all of this, pushing them up against the wall, that was red flag number 1.
His wife is not immune to Pops' demands. She, too, is forced to fall in line.
When someone exerts complete control over the family, as a father figure, the way that Pops did, it was easy for him to be both loved and feared.
You do what I tell you to do. Don't cross me.
Nevertheless, when it comes time to show her allegiance to her husband, she'll prove that murder can be a family affair.
If she didn't do what he said, she would face consequences.
To be killed in such a gruesome manner is just unbelievable.
No, please.
Husband and wife Jerry Woods and David Pops Johnson rule their household in Gary, Indiana, using intimidation, fear, and above all, loyalty.
That's like 4 names in one.
Pops definitely demanded loyalty from anybody in the family. He expected the teens in the home to do what he told them to do, and if not, there would be consequences.
He talked a lot about how much he would do anything for them and how upset he was when any transgression was taken against members of the family.
Man, get the fuck out of here.
What, man?
You remember Alpha Wiley?
Yeah, I remember that fool.
Look,
One day, Jerry finds an opportunity to show that she's got his back too, when she informs him that his old rival, Alfred Wiley, has returned to the neighborhood.
Pops was apparently shot by Alfred Wiley 10 years prior, and the shooting ended up leaving him partially blind.
Hey, Dooney, get in here.
Pops' retribution had been put on the
kids in
back
a
burner
situation.
when
Lady,
Alfred
come
skipped
on.
town. Until now.
Got a job for you.
he held a
I got a
grudge
job for you.
against
Won't
Alfred
you
for a
go
long
shoot the
time.
nigga that shot you?
Years later, Pops essentially sought his revenge.
Women like Jerry, who
I got
are
a job
involved
for
with
you.
very powerful men, will look for even the slightest thing to show that they should be and deserve to be in that circle of trust.
That was red flag
Even
number
the
2.
smallest bit of information can make her man grateful.
The couple calls in reinforcements to settle the score and finally serve up the
bullshit
street
she on.
justice that Pops so desperately needs.
Pops told his son, Dooney, that they had something important to do.
So important, that they would need a little hardware to get the job done.
Jerry put a gun in Dooney's hand and told him he was going out with his father.
The 19-year-old knows to never defy his dad and stepmom, so he's ready to help Pops in any way that he can.
Made that boy crash out.
The elder Johnson decides to pay his nemesis a visit near his old stomping grounds.
Pops and Dooney loaded up into a van and drove to an area outside an abandoned home and waited for Alfred to show up.
There's only one road in and out of the neighborhood, and it only takes a few minutes for the man of the hour to ride right into his trap.
Eventually, Pops spotted Alfred in the street riding a bicycle. He took the gun that Dooney had on him.
Pops
That's
says
where you
that's
went wrong,
him.
homie. You stop.
Alfred tries to run away, but Pops gets close enough to shoot him.
Shockingly, the gun jams, giving Alfred time to abandon his bike and run for his life. But Pops has a backup.
He pulls out his own .38 caliber, chases down Alfred. He ends up on a neighbor's property. He says, "Dave, don't do this, Dave." And then Pops shoots him in the head.
The man is still alive,
Done, homie.
but he's
You just
fading
ended
fast.
your life.
The
Pops
fact that
Johnson
Alfred was
Jones.
shot in the face, it literally was an eye for an eye.
The fallen man stumbles to a neighbor's front door and begs for someone to help him, to no avail.
Alfred died on the front porch
These
outside a
niggas in a
neighbor's property.
minivan doing this.
Father and son speed off before another resident calls 911 to report shots fired. When police arrive, witnesses have nothing to offer them. Pops and Dooney are free and clear for the time being.
There were no arrests made immediately after, and so it seemed that it was an unsolved case.
On their way home, Pops decides to temporarily hide the murder weapon until the heat dies down. And he knows
That's where that
just who to
sucker
give
shit
it
come
to.
in.
18-year-old Ariane
Don't
Lackey.
give it to an
Aaron
18-year-old.
Lackey was just a neighborhood kid. He happened to be a good friend of one of Pops Johnson's sons.
This seems like the perfect chance to get further into Pops's good favor. So he accepts the .38 and
Why you
agrees
get rid
to
of the
keep
gun,
it on the
though,
down
Pops
low.
Johnson?
When Arian took the gun, that put him into a relationship with the Johnson family that could easily become dangerous.
Young men like him see a strong man like Pops and will do anything to
That
get
nigga
into
was-
his orbit.
That nigga was not strong. That nigga was weak. Fuck all that shit you said, homie. I don't know where you grew up at, but that was some weak nigga shit.
With the deed done and the gun secured, Pops returns home to the open arms of his #1 lady, Jerry.
She gave him a hug, and there was a verbal exchange between the two. It was essentially her affirming him in the decision that he had made to kill Alfred Wiley.
It's not a typical reaction, but their relationship wasn't a typical one.
Their joy is short-lived when, a month later, the couple gets word that Ariane has been anything but low-key.
Pops learned that Aaron had been involved in a shooting of a family friend.
He doesn't cross this family like
Darn
that.
right.
When he realizes that Ariane more than likely used his .38 in the melee, the patriarch's blood boils.
I mean, what
Pops
you giving the gun
liked this
for?
kid that was wounded, and he felt that Arian had disrespected him.
And you know what else I heard?
What's more, rumor has it that the teenager has something else in store for the Johnson clan.
Aaron was planning to burglarize the family home.
Basically, this was, wrong, and something had to be done. He felt there
Hey, listen, his girl was the main problem here. She was the main problem. She was causing all the bullshit going on. I can see that right here.
needed to be some kind of revenge for it.
He decided that Arian Lackey needed to be taught a lesson.
Man, he's gonna learn he don't mess with this family.
This breach of trust will not stand. And Ariane will soon learn that betraying Jerry and Pops might be the last thing he ever does.
It was unbelievably violent.
Jerry stood by Pops throughout this entire ordeal.
I hope
Harry,
you stand
Indiana,
by his ass
Jerry
in prison.
Woods and her husband, David Pops Johnson, are fuming when they learn that 18-year-old Ariane Lackey has betrayed their confidence and tried to shoot a trusted family friend.
A young man who was close to Pops indicated that Arian and another teen had shot at him, and Pops didn't like that.
It was clear that they believed something had to be done.
They can no longer trust the teenager with the .38, who was supposed to be hiding it until the heat is off of Alfred Wiley's murder investigation.
They felt the need to confront Aaron Lackey about this weapon and find out what he did with it and try to retrieve it back.
This sad right here.
Some people are zero tolerance when it comes to betrayal, and they will not allow anyone to disrespect them.
Knowing her husband's rage when he's upset, Jerry's ready to do her part to help her man teach the teenager a lesson. And she's got the proper hardware.
Jerry went and got this handgun from a dealer that she knew who worked at a convenience store.
Armed and on a mission, the pair decide they'll bring along backup. Jerry, Pops, and trusted friend, 21-year-old Keontae Cason, pile into Jerry's van. Pops' son, Deanie, and another close friend, 26-year-old Michelle Hughes, follow in Michelle's car.
The group caravanned in 2 vehicles to a local hotel so that they could confront Aaron.
Jerry and Michelle wait in the cars, while Pops takes the men inside. An unsuspecting Ariane...
Like y'all wouldn't finna be on the hotel cameras pulling up. Come on now, man. Y'all gotta think more, better than the way y'all thinking out here. Crashing out for no reason.
...is surprised to see them. But he's not alone. 16-year-old Antonio Lackey is also there, and he's able to identify each and every one of the men at the door.
Antonio was the younger brother of Aaron. He was just there in the hotel with Aaron because they were living together as relatives.
Undeterred, the crew is all business.
Basically, they tell them they're trying to find the gun, the one that was used in the shooting. There was, some threatening language, and there was a lot of yelling.
How could you betray me like that?
The teenager claims that he doesn't have the weapon. He sold it. Pops blows up.
Pops had trusted Arian with this gun. It really angered him.
Pops yelled about the missing firearm. Arian said he can get it back.
I mean, Pops, if your ass never gave a gun to him from the beginning, you wouldn't even be in this situation.
Pops wasn't willing to let it go.
Now Pops is more determined than ever to punish the Judas. His goons strong-arm the 18-year-old out of the room, and Pops takes Antonio along for good measure.
And it wasn't just like a gentle hand on your shoulder kind of thing. It seemed rougher, more physical.
The 2 Lackey brothers wanted to stay together, but the family would not let them ride together. They forced them to ride in separate cars.
Once in the car, Pops and Jerry decide they'll take the Lackeys to a wooded property called The Farm, 10 miles south.
This area was not easy to access. It was pretty remote.
When they arrive, the 2 vehicles head down the long, overgrown path to a clearing. There, Jerry decides she will take on this show of force herself, proving to her man once and for all that she is his ride or die.
Given the relationship that Pops and Jerry already had, and that was proven by their hugging one another after he killed Alfred Wiley, well, it just makes sense to me that he was just proud of his wife in general.
Leaving the rest behind, Jerry orders the 2 brothers out of the cars. She then instructs Keontae, wielding a gun of his own, to help her escort the boys further into the woods.
Keontae and Jerry were each armed, and they pulled out their guns and told the brothers to march, basically, down this rutted road into a wooded area.
I would imagine that the 2 boys would be terrified. One is 16, one is 18, and they are with this group of people that they are essentially rendered powerless to.
Once they reach a clearing a few yards away, Jerry orders the brothers to stop.
The teenagers were made to kneel and to say their goodbyes. Antonio was trying to be strong, and Arian was on the verge of tears.
Hug your brother.
She tells them to hug, and then she points the gun at them.
Ready to show her husband the ultimate loyalty, Jerry Woods is holding 2 teenage boys, Ariane and Antonio Lackey, at gunpoint.
When Jerry raised the gun, Those boys had to be terrified.
Without hesitation, she pulls the trigger.
2 boys were shot in the head as they were kneeling, execution style.
She had her own children, so it's unbelievable she would do that to someone else's, 2 children.
I want to see
With
when
that,
y'all get
they
arrested.
head back to the
I got
cars,
to see this.
where the rest
I
of the
wanna see how
family has
y'all
been
act.
holding their breath after hearing the shots ring out.
They just left the boys' bodies there dead. They didn't try to bury them. They didn't cover them up. They just left them there abandoned.
When they arrive, Jerry has a warning for the rest of her so-called family.
Nobody crosses this family, ever.
She says something to
Nobody
the effect
crossed
of,
his family, bitch.
you all are the only people who know what happened. Don't be telling anybody else. And implied was, or the same thing could happen to you.
Intimidation is what kept this family in line, and violence was clear proof that you meant what you said and that you were the leader.
I hope they didn't think they
In the
was going to
days
get
that
away
follow,
with this.
life goes on for Jerry and Pops.
The Johnson family went back to business as usual, and things didn't seem any way unusual for them. It didn't seem that they were out of their routine.
Meanwhile, the Lackey family had reached out to anybody they thought might have information about where the 2 brothers were. That included people who had knowledge of their fate.
But 3 weeks later, the Lackeys receive the news no parent wants to hear.
There were some people who were going back there to fish, and as they were going through the woods, just came upon the remains of these boys and called the police.
And by the time they were found, there wasn't much left but bones.
Detectives have already pulled surveillance footage from the hotel the brothers were snatched from, and it jumpstarts the investigation.
The police were able to
Just look at this
positively
dumb shit they
identify
was
Pops
doing.
Johnson and Jerry Woods as the 2 people who forced the Lackey brothers from this hotel room. They were also able to identify several members of the crew that were with them.
With the suspects in their sights, police mobilize to build a concrete case against the Johnsons.
Police, freeze, be on the ground!
And 3 months after the murders, they are ready to make their move in dramatic
Broke
fashion.
their ass up out
The
of
SWAT
bed.
team showed up at the Johnson home. Pops tried to reach for a gun, and it turned into
Nigga
a
did not
wrestling
shoot
match with
nothing.
police,
You
and
reached
they were
for it, but
eventually
you
able to
didn't
restrain
shoot.
him.
They arrest
Suck
David
ass.
Pops Johnson IV and David Dooney Johnson V, charging both
Dummies.
with murder and kidnapping.
2 dummies.
But Pops's once devoted wife is MIA.
Jerry wasn't there. She'd apparently fled the area.
Jerry became a fugitive. She's
They
on the
gonna get you,
run.
Jerry.
In
Don't be
fact,
thinking
she
you
was
got away.
so wanted for her role in this case that her picture was constantly on the news, and it was constantly reported that she was being looked for by the police.
In the meantime, accomplices Keontae Kaysen and Michelle Hughes are taken into
Dummies.
custody
They got y'all
and
to
also
crash
charged
y'all
with
out.
murder and kidnapping.
Told
5
y'all,
months
y'all had
later,
it on y'all. They
Jerry's
was
time
coming.
on the run is up.
U.S.
You at a
Marshals
hotel,
located
bitch.
her in parking lot of a motel in Dallas, getting into a car,
Got
and
your ass,
swooped in
stupid.
and made an arrest.
Jerry is also charged with the kidnapping and murder of 18-year-old Ariane Lackey and his 16-year-old brother, Antonio. Pops and Jerry face additional charges in the death of 46-year-old Alfred Wiley. In the beginning, everyone remains loyal to the family, and Jerry stays true to the love of her life. But once they see the mountain of evidence stacked against them, it's every man or woman for
We
themselves.
already knew that was gonna happen
Pretty
once they
quickly,
got in that
the loyalty
interrogation room.
and the
Started
family talk.
telling them the time. Hey, you finna be getting life, double life. You might be even facing a death penalty. And niggas like, them. That's who did it. They shot. She shot. He. Yeah, it's over now.
Stopped. Keontae Kaysen ended up turning into a state witness. He pleaded to 2 counts of kidnapping in exchange for his testimony.
Boy, no, he
David
snitched.
Johnson V, Dooney, also turned state witness. Took the same plea.
Jody, come on now, homie.
If there was indeed a code of silence between the family, it fell apart almost immediately.
Immediately.
2 years later, Jerry faces a jury and immediately turns her back on the man with whom she once shared everything.
Jerry Woods essentially blamed much of the crime on her husband, Pops Johnson. She pointed the finger to him as the responsible party for much of this conflict.
Lady, come on.
Jerry portrayed herself as a battered woman, as someone who had been abused by her husband, as someone who wanted to leave him. She said she had filed for divorce, but there was no record of any divorce filing.
But throwing her man under the bus will not erase the mounds of evidence against her. Jerry Woods is found guilty on 2 counts of kidnapping and murder and sentenced to a crushing 120 years in prison.
120 years.
Months later, David Pops Johnson is found guilty of the same, plus the murder of Alfred Wiley, and receives a 195-year sentence.
Boy, you ain't never
now, Jerry can only dream of the time when she and her man shared an undying devotion to each other.
The fact that this crime involved close-knit family and the level of violence and the intensity of the violence, I think all of that made it really kind of unbelievable.
There is a pattern of criminal behavior that just seemed to escalate to the final crime, which is the cold and vicious murders of these 2 teenage boys.
When push comes to shove and your life is hanging in the balance, even the most devoted couples will end up falling.
I'm going to just say this. Don't end up like these people. Ladies, quit finding these motherfucking weak-ass men thinking he finna change your life. Well, he is about to change your life. But quit thinking that you finna find somebody and live this happy gangster life. Boy, you going to end up like these two. And crashed out everybody. Everybody got time, man. That's just stupid. Over a motherfucking gun? Over a gun. I can't even believe this, man. It's crazy and wicked out here with these people. But hey, it is what it is.